Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Territory Talk Podcast, the official podcast of the Florida Panthers, presented as always by Baptist Health, the official sports medicine provider of the Florida Panthers. Doug Plagens, Jameson Olive here with you, and we've got a jam-packed edition of Territory Talk for you today. It is our Stanley Cup preview episode, our Cup Final preview right here on Territory Talk. Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. The series gets going on Wednesday night. Every game of the series is going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern time start. Games 1 and 2, obviously, in Edmonton. Games 3 and 4 back in Sunrise on Monday the 9th and Thursday the 12th, I believe. Looking at just taking it off the top of my head. Everything else has the if necessary tag beyond that. We'll worry about it as we go. But the Stanley Cup Final is right around the corner. We are going to preview the upcoming Cup Final series. Also, a guest stopping by. You may have heard of him. Panthers defenseman Aaron Ekblad is going to be joining us coming up in just a little bit. He, like the rest of or a lot of members of this Panthers team, playing in their third straight Cup Final. And Jameson, I want to get to that idea first and foremost, and we talked about it a little bit in the last edition of Territory Talk, but to make a Cup Final 3 straight years in this era where it almost feels like the system is designed to prevent teams from making it to a Cup Final 3 years in a row. The league has so much competitive balance and parity, and that's a lot of what people like about the National Hockey League. But I think people can also appreciate when you have a team that has a little bit of a run of dominance like the Panthers have in the Eastern Conference.
We appreciate it. I don't know how much the folks north of the border appreciate it based on what I read, but we love it. It's great for the market. I think it's great for hockey, too. We talk about how important hockey is just in terms of, its growth in Florida, its growth, in places like Arizona, Texas, all these southern states where there's millions and millions of people. We want to get them into hockey. I think this really goes a long way. But you talk just about what it means for the franchise, and it's crazy. I mean, this is a franchise that didn't have a lot of banners for a long time. Now, if you look up in the rafters, they're right there, more than quite a few teams these days, kind of right there in the middle of the pack. We talked about that last episode with all their trips, to the finals. So they created a long storied history in a very short period of time, because it kind of felt like back in the day you had, the rat trick, the final in 96, and then not much for a long time. Little sprinkles here and there. You had, Pavel Bure was fun for a bit. They had a playoff trip during that era. Then Stephen Weiss was fun for a bit, and you had the series against the Islanders. Then you had Yager, that was fun, but there wasn't that long sustained success where you really felt like you were building something. It was more kind of like a concert was coming through town, whereas now this team's built something, and this is going to last a while, whether it's the team keeps winning or just what they've created lasts a while. They built something here that's going to grow into something even greater. So it matters, it's important, and like you said, you have to give an extra stick tap to the guys like Barkov, like Ekblad, the guys that kind of started at the bottom and rose up with this team, because it's, especially in today's NHL, it's easy to say I want out, and those are two guys that never said it.
So the Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers set to go coming up on Wednesday. And Jameson, as we go through previewing it, how do you want to go through it here? What do you think?
Just general thoughts, I think. Kind of what we think is going to be the difference here in this series, because there's a couple new faces on each side. For the most part, this kind of feels like we're starting off with Game 8 more than Game 1 in my book. I think it's more of a continuation, honestly.
It is a different look than last year. And throughout the season, I think you look at the Panthers, of course, they're playing a game that we saw it against Carolina, a game that they can duplicate night after night. They have a formula. They know what they need to do every single night, and they can win games different ways. And I think that is a great trait about this Panthers team. Looking at the other side, I think it's an Oilers team that can win games different ways. And maybe in years past, they weren't as equipped to do so. So we are going to maybe look at some elements of both rosters that could be good little subplots to watch. I do have one reason why and I think this is a tighter matchup on paper than it was last year. Throughout the season, you and I both said we liked Edmonton's roster last year better than this year. I think that changed as the season went along. They kind of had their version of the Panthers' Game 3 against Toronto in their Game 3 against Los Angeles back in the first round when they were kind of on the ropes, and they've endured a goaltending change and then an injury to Calvin Pickard that put Stuart Skinner back in, and Stuart Skinner finding his game. They've had a lot of different twists and turns in their playoff run. As we know, any long playoff run is going to have that, but I do have one area in mind that's not going to be very groundbreaking. We can get to later when we talk about how we ultimately feel like things will play out. I have one area where I feel like the Panthers have a significant upper hand that I think will pay off in the end, but we'll just have to wait and see. Jameson, I do think on paper, though, a tighter matchup than last year, and that's even with Zach Hyman out of the lineup for Edmonton. That's a significant blow, to say the least. A guy who's great around the net, a guy who has scored a lot of goals in the National Hockey League that they lean on quite a bit, but they have more depth this year than they did last year, and up and down their lineup, and in terms of the guys they can bring in if they lose somebody, it's a deeper team.
It is, and I think that's less the on-paper deep and more performance deep. There's a lot of guys that if I look just at their roster on paper, I'm like, but then you look at how they've been performing, and they've been overperforming. Corey Perry right now is on their top line with McDavid and Nugent Hopkins, and you say, that old guy, but out of nowhere, you and I were just talking about before the podcast, he's better now than he was 5 years ago.
He's better at 40 than he was at 34.
It's incredible. So they have guys like Kasperi Kapanen's been tossed aside by a couple teams. He
looks good. He looks good lately.
Hockey.
And all that matters is what you're doing lately.
Exactly. So, Trent Frederick was a great pickup for them. Jeff Skinner hasn't played much, I think 2 games, but he's got a goal. So maybe he'll be great for them, filling in for Hyman.
Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson are not 2016 Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson, but when you have those guys waiting in the wings and you can bring them in to fill a hole if you need to, that's something they didn't have in years past. And Evander Kane, also a big re-addition to the team.
He was missing last year, obviously, with an injury. Ekholm just got back for them, so you lose Hyman, but you get Ekholm. And I think in terms of importance, having your top shutdown D is probably more important than having Zach Hyman, although both players are incredibly valuable.
We thought that no Matthias Ekholm was going to be enough to eliminate them from the first round.
It almost was, but they survived and they got through it. But you look at their defense. Jake Wallman was a great get for them, and I think that's, to me, the biggest difference. Where they're the deepest is now they do have 3 pairs. Last year you had the Cody Ceci pair, and no offense to Cody Ceci, but you go back to the Stars series, he was their worst defenseman. You go back to last year's Stanley Cup Final, he wasn't doing much. So I just think they're a more stable team. I don't think they're suddenly 20 times better than they were last year, but they don't have as much, oh no, we have to make up for this pair or this line or this guy. For the same reason, I think probably going to see less of the McDavid-Draisaitl combo early in games, where it feels like they had to form that super line very early against the Panthers in the series last year. I think they trust more guys than they did last year.
Look at the third period of Game 7. Yeah. Those guys played just about the whole period.
So I think that's the biggest difference. But that being said, Doug, now you flip to the other side of the ice, and the Panthers are also a better team. They're also a deeper team. The only guy potentially missing right now is A.J. Greer, per Paul Maurice. He's question mark heading into Game 1. Luosterainen's fine. All the guys that came back, Mikkola, Reinhart, they're good to go. Greer's obviously important, but this team is deep. Suddenly you're like, okay, Greer's out. Jesper Boquist, you're in. Nico Sturm, you're in. They got a lot of proven guys that can get in there and take that spot. But, the Panthers were such a great team last year. They had a lot of great talent. They had a lot of guys. But not only is this team, I think, deeper on paper, but also now you have a lot of guys on that team that have Stanley Cup rings, and that matters. So if you ask me to pick going into the series, I'd say maybe it's 55-45 in favor of the Panthers. I think, we'll talk about it more, but does home ice advantage matter for the Oilers? I think more than other teams it does, just because Rogers Place is a heck of a barn and it's a heck of an environment.
Still waiting to meet Roger. Haven't met him.
He's never
We're
there.
always at his place.
He's never there. He's got Roger owns a lot in Canada. He's got a lot of properties to visit. But if I look at that, though, the Panthers, obviously, Doug, and we'll talk about this now, are just such an incredible road team. Their road numbers kill their home numbers. They love being the underdog. They love going into loud buildings and making it quiet.
I think a lot of that comes from experience, too. And I would say home ice advantage probably doesn't mean as much in the NHL as it used to, and it probably means the most in the NFL of the 4 major sports. I think it means, and everybody, let me preface it with this, everybody would rather play a home game. Everybody would rather wake up in their own bed. Everybody would rather play in front of their home fans, be in their home facilities, all that. But I think when you have a team that's as experienced as this Panthers team has, we had a chance to hear from Matthew Tkachuk speaking to the media today, and it was in reference to something completely different, but he said there's not anything this team hasn't seen in the last few years. When you have a team as battle-tested as this Panthers group, I think that home ice advantage means even less.
I think so, too, and I think the experience also makes you that much better road team, because there's no curveballs on the road.
And home ice came in handy last year. The Panthers were home for Game 7 last year. That mattered, but I think that the value of home ice probably goes down as your team becomes more battle-tested, more experienced.
And if you look at the numbers right now, they're 8-2 on the road. They've won their last 5. They're averaging almost 5 goals a game on the road. Obviously, I don't put too much stock in that number because a lot of that can get tilted by just third periods, a lot of empty netters, things like that. But almost 43% on the power play, almost 90% on the penalty kill. Everything's clicking. They're spreading out the offense. A ton of guys have double-digit points on the road. Sam Bennett's got a ton of goals. Lucy's got a ton of points. They're just comfortable in that situation. So even if they end up having to play 4 road games in this series, I don't think that's a deterrent. And obviously, the Oilers are a good home team. They're 6-1 at home in these playoffs. No slouches there. And like I said, I think that's maybe the thing that caught the Panthers off guard the most last year is how crazy Rogers Place was during those playoffs. It's deafening. It's tough. Whereas now I talked to Carter Verhaeghe the other day, and he said they're ready for that this time. Does it mean it's going to be a factor? Yeah, sure, it'll still be a factor, but it's not going to be a surprise. So in something you might look at as being a difference maker, having home ice advantage, Doug, I think you toss that out. I don't think that gives the Oilers that big an edge.
I think the energy, you look at what we had last year, if you could comprehend it, I think the energy is going to be elevated even beyond what we saw last year, because let's not forget, when the series shifted to Edmonton last year, the Panthers were in the driver's seat, and the place was still that energetic. And they had every reason to start to feel a little bit deflated at that point in time. Now, we know how the series played out. Edmonton clawed its way back, but even before Game 4, before puck drop of Game 4, the Oilers were down 3-0 in that series and were facing a significant obstacle. And the place was still just going bonkers. So I would expect going into Game 1, that energy is going to be off the charts even more. And I would think that also, I think it's a big, we're not breaking any ground with this either, but Edmonton's going to come out pretty tough in the first 10 minutes or so of Game 1, I would imagine. They're going to have a heck of a push at home with how energetic that building figures to be.
For sure. And if you look at the lineups, I think we can both agree Panthers, the deeper team. But the Oilers have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Higher offensive upside on their side, just in terms of those stars, but the Panthers on their top line have 2 Selke Trophy finalists, not a guy that's also won the award a couple times, and Alexander Barkov. So I look at that, and I do think the Panthers still have, obviously, the depth advantage, but we know no matter what the Panthers do, no matter how good a game they play, there's going to be a couple scary sequences where the Oilers are just whipping that puck around in the O-zone and getting some great looks. We know Draisaitl's going to get some of those one-timers off on the power play. No matter how good defensively you are, McDavid's going to get a couple breakaways in this series, and it's going to come down to a lot, I feel, Bob, because Bob's going to have to stop a lot of those. The team's going to ask a lot of him in this series, no matter how good they play. And at the other end, you have Stuart Skinner, who's either terrible or fantastic, and we'll see which Stuart Skinner you get, but I think you can rely more on Bob. I think he's more just proven and steady, and you know what you're going to get. That doesn't mean he's going to be shutting out every game. But I think you head into a series with more confidence in a guy like Bob than you do with a guy like Skinner, who has been great lately, but has also in this playoff run had some terrible games. So we'll see what happens there, Doug. But I think if I'm looking at the depth from the forwards to the defense to the goaltending, I still give it to the Panthers, but you can't deny just the game-breaking talent and ability of McDavid and Draisaitl and how they individually can affect the series.
Both teams are capable of winning it all, and both belong there. The Panthers, I think,
by far 2 best teams.
And the Panthers have a better overall roster. I will say this too, could play in the Panthers' favor as the series goes on. The Panthers, oddly enough, only had to go to overtime 1 time. In these playoffs, and that adds up. I remember in 23 when we were out in Vegas, and it was before Game 5 when the Golden Knights ultimately won the Stanley Cup. But a reporter asked Bruce Cassidy how his team was able to stay so fresh throughout that playoff run, and he pointed to the fact that I think they only went to double overtime 1 time, and it was in their first-round series against the Jets that year. And over a long playoff run, having shorter series or not having to go into multiple overtime periods really played in his team's favor. That was Vegas back in 2023. On this run, the Panthers, they haven't had to deal with, a quadruple overtime in the conference final like they did that year. They haven't had to have consistently games going past regulation time. So that adds up. Those, being able to keep those miles off the tires could potentially play in the Panthers' favor here as we, again, head into the Stanley Cup final. I do think, nothing new here as far as playoff hockey goes, but the 2 goaltenders for different reasons are the most important players in this series. Yeah. Both teams have great offensive firepower. Both teams have stars. Both teams have, 6 capable, proven National Hockey League defensemen they can roll out there on a given night. Sergei Bobrovsky may be putting together his best postseason, His, I believe at this moment in time, his goals against average would be his best playoff goals against average for a single playoff run in his career, and it's the second best save percentage he's had, and a potential with a couple of good games.
I believe he's still second right now in goals saved above expected right now, but he'll be first. He should be first by the end of the Stanley
He's
Cup
putting
Final.
together what, by the time it's all said and done, could end up being his best individual playoff run, and he's had some good ones, obviously. So, Sergei Bobrovsky, who's been the only goalie of record for the Panthers in these playoffs, and Stuart Skinner for different reasons. If you get the good Stuart Skinner, he can hang in there. There's no doubt about it. If Edmonton ends up having to go to Calvin Pickard at some point in time, and he was really good, nothing against Calvin Pickard. I had a chance to be around him when he was in the American Hockey League working his way up, and I still hold to this day he's one of the best all-around guys that I've had a chance to work with in all my time working in this sport. But if Edmonton at some point changes goalies in this series, you figure the Panthers have a significant upper hand, because I think Stuart Skinner's going to have at least get a second chance before something like that would happen.
And we've seen it each of the last 3 years during all these runs. The moment the Panthers start convincing the other team to swap their goaltenders, the series is pretty much done. It's something they're good at. So, that matters. And you look at kind of just the big picture stuff. I mean, the Panthers played one more game, 17 games to 16 games. So neither team has got a huge advantage of man, that team really had to claw their way to get to the final. Panthers have one extra day off. Doesn't really matter because they're also the team traveling.
Wrapping up a couple of series in 5 is great for the
So I think
Panthers.
that's kind of a wash. But I think, Doug, as I look to maybe the ultimate final X factor in the series, to me, it's going to be the penalty kill. And that's, if you look at the Panthers, that's the reason they won the Stanley Cup last year. It's the reason they didn't win it the year before, among other things, obviously the health. But that's the thing that Paul Maurice points to as saying this has been the biggest difference. And it's been great again here in the playoffs, 87.9%. Whereas you look at the Oilers, 66% on the penalty kill. And I went back to see what happened there. They've given up at least one power play goal in 9 games, and they've given up multiple in 5 games. So it's not like I initially thought, okay, they probably had a couple really bad games. They did. They gave up 3 power play goals in 2 games. But it doesn't seem good. And obviously Ekholm wasn't there for a lot of that. But as I look at this series, it's going to matter. It's whatever team I think has the better penalty kill, and that includes the goaltenders, that includes with the work they're going to put in. But I feel like the penalty kills are going to win the series in the end.
Yeah, penalty kill's been really good. Panthers have been able to lean on that. Paul Maurice has said it's one of the biggest reasons they won the Stanley Cup last year. And Edmonton's power play, if it gets rolling, it's one of the few things in the National Hockey League that can almost feel automatic at certain times. They're that dangerous. So the Panthers' penalty kill will have to be on high alert against the Oilers in this series. Folks, let's move on now to our special guest. Territory Talk is always presented by Baptist Health, the official sports medicine provider of the Florida Panthers. A conversation now with Panthers defenseman, the second longest tenured Florida Panther, Aaron Ekblad. Well, kind enough to join us now here on the Territory Talk podcast, Panthers defenseman Aaron Ekblad. And Aaron, thank you so much for stopping by. I know it's a busy schedule right now, but heading to the Cup Final for a 3rd straight season. I know the last box is yet to be checked here, but have you stopped to think about how much of an accomplishment this is in today's game to make it to a Cup Final 3 straight years like this?
Yeah, I had a minor hockey coach actually text me the other day, and he said, how about that, 3 in a row? And, when you do stop and think about it, and the accomplishment to even do that is incredible, and there's no doubt about it. And you can't short side how, important that is. But like you say, there's another box to be checked, and really important. We really want to win.
And before we get to the series itself, just kind of going big picture a little bit. For yourself, obviously, you were here for a long time. You kind of rose up with the organization. When you look at your own game and your own, just who you are as a person, is there kind of a before success and after success version of you, do you think, before this whole run kind of started and where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, you always try to stay grounded and be the same person, but at the end of the day, it's different. It's a different culture around here. I prepare myself differently. I do things differently as a player. My game has shifted to more of a defensive-minded aspect than it had in the past before, all of this success. So this team success. So yeah, it's a different game for me. I don't feel like a different person. It's, it's the same in that aspect. Maybe we get recognized a little bit more in Fort Lauderdale, but for the most part, it's the same.
And Aaron, it's easy to look back at it as a learning experience now, and I'm sure in the moment defeat. To say defeat stung is probably an understatement, but that run in 2023 that fell just short against Vegas. And we knew after it was all said and done what you were battling through during that run, what a lot of your teammates were battling through. You talked about the way your game's evolved. How much do you think that run meant? I know it fell short and it was tough in the moment, but in terms of growing your on-ice game, your mental approach to everything, what did that run mean to you and to the rest of your teammates who are still here?
Yeah, it was the learning experience of it, and the confidence in knowing that you could do it. You could get to the final, right? And I think that's, maybe a little bit of what Edmonton's going through right now as well, is they realize they can do it. They can get there. And you saw them kind of, get through LA and it wasn't easy for them, but, they definitely were pretty commanding in their wins for the rest of the playoff to get to this point. So, yeah, I feel like just getting there gives you that confidence to do it again and again. And this year, by no means was easy for us. It was, very difficult. Toronto was extremely difficult. Carolina was a very, grueling series, and playing every other day from that Game 7 on was just, really tough and hard on us. But it definitely makes it a confidence factor is much higher when you're able to do it a few times.
How far does it feel before you actually do it? Because I even go back to, that first time you guys beat the Capitals to win a round, but felt great. But then you realize that we have to win 2 more even to get to the final after that. But now that you've been through it, it kind of feels like it goes fast now, at least for us. But before you do it, just how far does it feel, the final, before you get there the first time?
Oh, it feels a world away. It feels like almost unattainable in some sense. I've been joking recently in a few interviews saying that as long as we had Barkey, we always had hope.
But speaking of which, since that came out, has he invited you over yet? Have you still not been to his house?
I still have not been to his
Even
house.
after that, because that made the rounds.
I don't know. I don't know very many guys that have. He always says we can plan a party for him. At some point, we can plan a party for him, but we have to plan it, and he doesn't. He just wants to show up to his own house, to his own party.
30th birthday's coming up, I think, at some point. He's got to be close.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah, there you go. Seed's been planted.
Idea. Yeah, I don't remember what I was saying before. But
I always talked about how far, like you're saying, you had such a bark, how far you felt versus now.
Yeah. Like I said, almost unattainable, like a world away. But now it just kind of feels like when we win a playoff series, it's all business, right? We're not necessarily in the room jumping up and down and going crazy. It's I do remember beating Washington, and that was you feel like a monkey's off your back, and you exhale, whereas now it's it's all business. It's even keel all the way through, and you just get ready for the next one.
Something that Matthew has talked about a couple of times here as we've gotten closer and closer to Game 1 of the Cup Final, had some high praise for the new guys that have come in to the locker room, guys that came in fresh for this year. And obviously, as the season's gone on, you've got a guy like Brad Marchand, who has won a cup before, who certainly has some runway left and wants to win another one. You've got guys like Nate Schmidt, like Tomáš Nosek, who've seen a cup final before but haven't had a chance to lift the cup. Obviously, continuity's great. You guys have had a core of players that have all been here for a long time and grown together, but how valuable is it to be able to inject that sort of freshness year to year, and when you can do that with guys that are also experienced too?
Yeah, I mean, the way it all meshes together, and you get new guys that are extremely hungry, guys that have won that are still hungry. I almost think after you win, you want it more, in a sense, because you felt how cool it is, right? So, yeah, in a sense, it's great for both sides of us. New guys that are fresh and hungry, that want it, and for us to share some of our experiences in different situations, not necessarily totally around hockey, but around life in the playoffs. I think it all bodes well for all of us.
Looking at the series now, obviously, it's a team game. Both teams' depth's really going to be important, special teams, goaltending. But for them, spotlight's always going to be on McDavid and Draisaitl. From a defensive perspective, there's some guys around the league that are like that, like a Nathan McKinnon. But when you're facing McDavid, Draisaitl, what is the unique defensive challenge for you as a top pair defenseman?
Well, just start with McDavid. It's speed. It's world-class, all-time speed and puck handling that can be done at speed. So, I mean, for me, it's skate backwards as fast as you possibly can, but also try and match speed as early as you can. And then on top of that, it takes a 5-man group to stop a guy like that.
Yeah.
It takes the centerman picking him up early and slowing him down and bumping him. And then it takes the rest of the players, including us, to, get our gaps early but also not cheat the game, not be on the outside, be on the inside, and take care of that as much as possible. And then with Draisaitl, he's got some speed, actually. He's not slow at all by any means. He's actually pretty quick. Straight lines, and then he sees the ice on his backhand and forehand extremely well. So as soon as you get over to him, he's going to make a play and get it around you. And then that brute strength that he has. You see him on faceoffs. He's so strong on his stick. He's really good at picking guys. So they're dynamic players in their own rights and extremely dangerous in all situations. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a great challenge, and it's stress. It's stress before the game. It's stress during the game. It's stress when you're on the bench watching it. You want to do whatever you can to try and limit their time space.
Speaking of stress versus maybe excitement, obviously both those guys huge on the power play as well. PK versus power play, special teams are huge. In the playoffs, I remember go back to Game 7 last year, there was just that one power play in the whole game for Edmonton. Kevin Stenlund, no stick for a minute and a half. Felt like a lifetime for us watching. But for you as a guy that's always out there on the PK, how maybe different does a PK feel in the playoffs when those 2 minutes are just so important? Do you feel it? Does it feel a little bit more exciting? Especially, I'm sure when you kill it too, the emotions on the bench are even bigger.
Yeah. In last year, I wasn't playing on the power play, so it made it all that much more exciting to go out there and get that kill and find that, that way to contribute for your team. But I mean, it's still the same way I approach it now. But yeah, it's pure stress, especially against those guys. It's pure stress. You know they're going to enter the zone with possession. There's not much you can do about it, and you're just trying to give them one or two options rather than three or four so that Bob can read the next shot. So it's, and you, in that moment, you're playing for the Stanley Cup, you'll do anything to block that shot. Like there's no amount of pain you won't accept to get in front of that shot and save the game. So it's a great position to be in. I love being on the penalty kill. It's one of my favorite things to do.
And in talking about the special teams, maybe no rhyme or reason to it, the road special teams numbers for you guys have been outstanding, knock on wood, in these playoffs. And taking it a step further, you guys have just been a really good road team. And we've been asked about that a lot. And I feel like maybe in the National Hockey League today, obviously everybody would prefer to play at home, play in front of their home fans, wake up in their own bed, be in the home facilities, all that. But maybe in the National Hockey League today, home ice advantage doesn't mean as much as in years past. In the case of you guys, you're going to be the road team in this Cup Final, and you're going to be starting on the road. Do you think that for a team as battle-tested as you guys, maybe there is more of a, hey, we'll play anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's home, road, whatever the situation is. You guys are just equipped for it because of the experience that you've had?
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't think that home ice matters a ton until the final, I think, because you have that extra flight. And if you were playing 7 games and your team was really beat down in the third round, then that extra flight and not a lot of rest wouldn't do well for you. But we've had a lot of rest. I don't think that plays to it in this situation as much. So no, I don't think it matters so much. Obviously in Game 7, you'd love to be at home just like we were last year. But at the end of the day, that's a situation we find ourselves in. We're a good road team. We trust our game and it travels well. And we'll try and impose that will on them as early as possible in the series.
Sticking with travel as we kind of take it off ice now, near the end of this interview, poker. It's going to be a lot of poker on that flight to Edmonton, I imagine.
Long games.
It's been a full season already. What's the state of the table these days? How are things?
They're good. They're good. I mean, it's a lot of fun. We up the buy-in for every playoff series.
Okay. So high rollers in right now.
That's kind of that's been the tradition.
Higher stakes on the ice, higher stakes at the table.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know. You hear sometimes like kids playing video games, it's really good for their hand-eye. I think the fact that we put ourselves in stressful situations on the plane, it gives us that edge on the ice. No, I'm joking, but it's pretty high stakes right now. It's fun. It's a really enjoyable game to play. I'm not going to talk about the exact amount of money that we're playing for, but we do up it every round. And I don't know, that's just been the tradition over the last few years.
And sticking with that, obviously, there's a couple different games on the plane. There's a couple different groups, but your game's kind of like, in The Sopranos, they call it the executive game. Like, it seems like it's the big one. Brad Marchand shows up, and he's in there pretty much day one. How does a new guy get into that game? How does Brad show up and just get on that table?
Well, we run out of guys. Like, not a lot of guys want to, lose their shirt on the plane. But at the end of the day, it all comes back around, and it's a drop in.
And was that just great for a new guy, for team building, for sure? A guy like Brad, who you played against a lot. Like, I'm sure you got to know him a lot at that table early.
Yeah, you know what? I'll point to a guy like Josh Mahura. I don't even think he really knew poker all that well, but he was new to the team and he wanted to make friends. And we ended up going on, the poker group, and it was Monty and Rhino that sit kind of off to the side. We end up on vacation together every All-Star break, right? So, yeah, it brings guys into the fold for sure. We have our own separate little group chat. Not to be it's not cliquey or anything. Obviously, we're all great friends on the team, but making jokes and stuff like that about poker, and then obviously the tally of who's up and who's down goes in that chat. So it's just a fun. I think it'd be a great way, if you're on a different team to meet guys and chat and have fun. It's all part of it.
And just taking it to the ice here as we get ready to wrap up here. Before the puck drops, and you guys are going to start the series on the road in Edmonton, the atmosphere is going to be off the charts. You've been fortunate now to have played in a couple of cup finals. Will there be, even if it's 5-10 seconds, will there be a moment where you kind of let yourself like soak it in and say, hey, I'm back in the cup final, feel this, and then, get ready to drop the puck?
The emotion around it, comes down just a little bit every time you do it. I think that's just natural. And I'll point to, we had 4 chances to win the Stanley Cup last year. The first time, the emotion, you can't sleep. It consumes you, that game 4. And each time, that emotion went down to the point where you could manage it and you could, manifest it to do better on the ice. And I think, that's kind of how it is now. You have to manifest it and not let it consume you, but enjoy it and feel excitement from it. But there's a certain amount of anxiety and stress that you're going to feel, and I'm excited to feel that. You're human and you care, and the responsibility that you feel is just, it's incredible, right? It's a whole city. It's South Florida that's, rooting us on, and we're excited to go do a job for them.
Well, Aaron, thanks so much for stopping by here on Territory Talk. I know we can't wait to get out there. Can't wait to see you guys hit the ice, and best of luck here in this 3rd straight Cup final.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Territory Talk is the official podcast of the Florida Panthers, presented as always by Baptist Health, the official sports medicine provider of the Florida Panthers. And great to catch up with Aaron Ekblad there. Lots of good stuff. Talking about what it means to be going back to a Cup final, talking about some of that past experience, and what it's going to take to defend against McDavid and Draisaitl, as you asked about there, Jameson.
Yeah, I mean, great stuff from Ekblad. Just no filter in the best kind of way. Just really good insights, and when you talk to Ek, you kind of feel like he kind of brings you to his level. Like a lot of things he's thinking about now, it's kind of in my head a little bit. I can feel like I'm kind of looking at the series maybe even a little bit differently after talking to him. So it's going to be huge. I liked what he talked about on the penalty kill, because, man, 60-minute game, but there's probably going to be hopefully only 6 minutes, hopefully not 8 minutes. Hopefully there's only 3 power plays or so a game, but like 6 minutes in that 60, they're going to be chaos. They're going to decide, like we talked about, the penalty kills probably decide the series. It's going to be huge. Great to hear about the card games and stuff like that. You and I always peek up from time to time, see how things are going at the table.
Occasionally you'll hear a big pop from the group over there,
cheer,
something loud. Yeah.
And I never thought about it from the team building aspect, and that's really interesting. And it's anytime we get a Josh Maher reference, we're happy. We love the Her Dog here. But yeah, it's great to hear, and even just hearing in his voice, he talked about it. This is just going back. It's business. You know what to expect now. There's not that monkey off your back feeling. There's not that overwhelming excitement. It's just job's not done. 4 more wins. Let's go.
So big thanks to Aaron Ekblad for his time, for stopping by here on Territory Talk, and hope everybody out there enjoyed that. We certainly did enjoy catching up with him. The series begins on Wednesday, June 4th, here in the calendar year 2025.
When I think hockey, I think Wednesday.
Hey, once upon a time,
Wednesday night rivalry, yep.
That was something. So yes, Wednesday night, 8 Eastern, and to make things easy on you, your day planner, your Palm Pilot, your pocket organizer. I know nobody uses any of these things, but I'm just trying to hammer home a point wherever you keep your life organized. 8 o'clock Eastern is going to be the start time for every game of the Stanley Cup Final. So you can catch it all then. And the series starts on Wednesday. Wednesday, June 4th, Friday, June 6th, Monday, June 9th, as the series shifts to Amarant Bank Arena in Sunrise. My birthday, Bill Lindsay and I always say Billy's a May birthday. We say if we're still playing hockey on Billy's birthday, we're having a good run. If we're still playing hockey on my birthday, we're having a great run.
Okay.
And then June 12th, Thursday, June 12th. Those are the first 4 games of the series. First 2 in Edmonton. Games 3 and 4 in Sunrise. After that, everything has that if necessary tag. We'll worry about that on a future episode of Territory Talk. We don't want to convolute this thing and throw in more information than we all need here at this point in time. Keep the focus right here on the here and now. There will be watch parties for each road game, obviously. Yep. There's you could call it a watch party. The home games are everybody's there watching. Call it a watch party.
It is. It's a different version.
So there's something going on at Amerant Bank Arena for every game of the series, even when the Panthers are not at home, is what we're getting at.
And we'll be there for those ones. We'll be there for the 3 and 4 watch
party.
Yes,
yes, we'll be there for the game 3 and 4 watch parties.
In the press box.
Yes, at Amerant Bank Arena as the game's being played there.
But yeah, it's going to be great. Watch parties for games 1 and 2, of course, at Amerant Bank Arena. Go to FloridaPanthers.com, get all the info. Also get your tickets there for games 3 and 4. Tickets,
can't be many of those left. Not
a lot left, and I know they look expensive, but then look at the tickets in Edmonton, and you'll say, wow, what a deal. What a bargain. So get those tickets while they last. I know so many people that got to go to last year's Stanley Cup Final that would not trade those memories for anything in the world. So it's worth it. You can't put a price on Stanley Cup Final hockey and just how special it is, especially if things go the way we hope it goes. So, no, it's going to be great. I can't believe, as we're recording this on a Sunday, it's only 2 games next week. It's weird. It feels like this is a little drawn out here to begin.
Yeah.
But 2 huge games. We'll see what happens. I think the Panthers, if they can go up there, like we said, anytime you start on the road, you go up there, you get a split, you're in the driver's seat. We've seen the Panthers lose the first 2. We've seen the Panthers win the first 2. We've seen them get splits. They know how to win it each way, but I think personally,
they've been up 2-0 and down 2-0 on this run.
For myself, though, I'm always happy with the split, but if you can get 2, you can get 2. But, Doug, I think overall, as we make our predictions, this is the official podcast of the Florida Panthers presented by Baptist Health, the official sports medicine provider of the Florida Panthers.
Oh, there we go.
I got a shout-out, too. This is the time of year, too, when a couple of the docs travel with us.
Yes, it's been great to interact with them.
We bring Territory Talk on the road. You hear Dr. Yadnik on the podcast sometimes. He's on the plane now. We're hanging out with Dr. Y. Who else we got?
Dr. Schwartzen.
Got Dr. Schwartzen. A couple more. And Dr. Friedman never comes. We never need the heart doc on the road.
Shout out Dr. Friedman, though. We know you're out there.
We always give Dr. Friedman a shout out. But as you look at, now in this time, I think, Doug, as we make our predictions, like I said, we're the official podcast of the Panthers. So, of course, we're both picking the Panthers to win this thing. We also gave some reasons why we think they can or they won't. We highlighted the pros and cons of both teams. They're not that there's cons on either team, but what team maybe is more pro than the other in some areas.
Connor McDavid. Connor Brown.
They actually do have more cons over there. Scratch that. But I think, for me, there's a lot of buildup, obviously, in the media for Edmonton. There's a lot of the storyline of, the teams that lose and come back and win in the rematch. They talk about the Penguins and how big that was. And obviously that was Crosby. This is McDavid. There's a lot of connections, a lot of easy storylines to write for why the Oilers should win this. And for the Panthers, I feel like not enough people are talking about just what it would mean to win back-to-back as the Florida Panthers. So I think, once again, the world has made the mistake, Doug, of making the Panthers the underdogs. They love being the underdogs. Even when they're the best team, Matthew Tkachuk is complimenting the other team and saying, we'll be lucky to win a game off these guys and all that stuff he loves doing. So I think that's a mistake. I think the Panthers are now the underdogs in the storyline, not in real life. But I think because of that, it's going to give them that extra chip they need, give them that extra edge, where now I feel like there's suddenly pressure on Edmonton that shouldn't be there to get this done because they made it all the way back and they have to live up to these storylines. That stuff creeps in. That stuff matters. So I'm going to say Cats in 6.
It does feel like, and maybe it's just the conversation, and because there's been time now for us to sit and think about what this matchup is going to be like and how it's going to go, and all the prognosticators are out there talking, it does feel like the pressure is kind of shifting on Edmonton. It doesn't feel like the Panthers, for a defending champion, it doesn't feel like the Panthers are going into this with a lot of pressure.
No one's looking at the Panthers and saying, oh man, if these guys don't win, blah, blah, blah. The Oilers are getting that. Panthers aren't. And like I said, as much as you want to block that out, storylines creep into rooms. Storylines matter. Storylines get in your brain. So I think that's a benefit for the Panthers going into the series, that once again, they're being doubted. I said Cats in 6, Doug. What do you got?
I also feel like we're looking at a series on the longer side.
Just don't say 7. I
and
can't do 7
well,
again.
Then you know what? The Panthers are going to go and spoil the party in Edmonton and win it in 5, where I'm going to go with that, because I don't want to say 7, because you're my friend. You asked me not to. So that's why I'm going to
Thank
say
you.
Panthers in 5. So that's what I'm going with.
Bold.
And I probably would have said Panthers in 6, but that's not anything. Nobody wants to listen to two guys agreeing with each other.
And
on
I will
everything.
say, when you say something like Cats in 6 or something, that doesn't mean the Cats are far and away a much better team than the Edmonton Oilers. Playoffs, things can happen. Great teams can get swept. Great teams can, sweep. You can be in any which way. I don't think the number really is defining of how the series went or who the teams are or how good they are. It's just kind of a feel for how the vibe and the flow of the series might go. So 5's not out of the question as good as the Oilers are, just as 6 isn't, just as the Oilers winning isn't out of the question. But I think for me, Cats in 6, for you, Cats in 5, you want more time off than I do.
There you have it. This is the official podcast of the Florida Panthers, presented as always by Baptist Health, the official sports medicine provider of the Florida Panthers. Territory Talk in front of a live studio audience. Folks, we will talk to you next time, and by that time, we'll have at least one Stanley Cup Final game in the books.
Wait, Doug, you said studio audience. We have 3 people in here. Can I get a woo from the crowd? Pretty good.
Well,
Pretty good.
That was only 2 of them that made any sound. Oh, there we go. There's the third member of the live studio audience just clapped. So, all right. Thanks to our live studio audience. Thanks for our traditional podcast audience. For Jameson Olive, I'm Doug Plagens. This has been Territory Talk. We'll talk to you next time.